In a predominantly male industry, Temple Grandin made a significant stand in history by improving the treatment of cattle and other animals in the slaughter industry. Grandin also showed that she was not afraid to showcase her different way of thinking, and she confidently stood up for what she knew was right, even in the midst of prejudice, harassment, and scorn.
Temple was born in 1947. She will turn 67 this summer. If you're checking on me, I'm 87. By the time Temple was 2, I knew that something was very wrong. She was mute. She wouldn't look at me.
Temple Grandin didn't talk until she was nearly 3.5 years old. Temple's mother didn't give up hope, taking her to speech therapy and working with her at home. Eventually, she began to speak, although it was obvious that certain social skills were missing. Throughout her school years, Temple was brilliant, yet misunderstood by most of her teachers and peers. She excelled at carpentry, art, electronics, and science, and she loved horses and anything that could fly. She was bullied mercilessly because she was different.
Dr. Carlock, her science teacher, supported her and helped her with her studying.
But how did all of these passions and struggles lead Temple down the road to becoming the leader we know today? In her own words,
"When I was a teenager, I had terrible anxiety attacks. It felt like constant stage fright. Then I went out to my aunt's ranch and I noticed that when the cattle went into a restraining device called a squeeze chute, they relaxed. So I got into a squeeze chute and it helped me calm down too. Many people with autism and Asperger's syndrome find pressure calming. This got me interested in cattle. I went to feed yards to see how the squeeze chutes worked, and I didn't like the way many of the places treated the cattle. They were way too rough and that bothered me. This led me to start designing cattle handling equipment."
Temple had lots of support along the way. Family, friends, helpful and understanding teachers.
Mother was always pushing me. Okay, when I was in high school, I went to my aunt's ranch. Then when I was in college, she said, well, you can't no longer just go to the aunt's ranch all summer. She arranged other internships for me to do, like research lab. So I was getting job skills.
While Temple was visiting her aunt and uncle's farm one summer, she learned about a device used to calm and hold cattle when they need to be vaccinated or handled. Temple had the idea to try the chute herself and noticed that it calmed her. This was one of the times that she used her unique mind to think the way animals did, realizing that the machine might help her as well. With the help of her science teacher, she eventually made her own squeeze machine so that she could calm herself when needed. After she graduated from high school, Temple Grandin went to Franklin Pierce College to continue her education. She brought her squeeze machine with her, eventually writing a scientific paper about the effects the machine had on a person's senses. Temple Grandin graduated from college with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology in 1970, eventually moving on to receive her Master's of Science and her doctorate. For her graduate research, Temple wanted to study cows and the correlation the shoots in the plants had with their behavior while going through the yards. She needed to get information from a variety of plants, starting with the Scottsdale feed yard. Even though Temple had permission to go there, the workers wouldn't let her in because she was female. Not giving up, Temple wrote an article on squeeze chutes that earned her a press pass. This was like a ticket that would get her into any feed yard, even though she was a woman. But this didn't stop the workers of the yard from harassing her. Jim Uhl, the president of a construction company that built many designs Temple made, said this:
"Temple has great courage and stamina. She'll hang in there in the toughest situations."
Temple continued to stand firm in her beliefs and work at the feed yards despite the large amounts of prejudice against her.
In addition to having to prove her worth as a person with autism, Grandin faced the extra challenges of harassment and sexist biases as one of the only female scientists and experts in the livestock industry.
Temple Grandin herself said,
"When I started in the early 1970s, the only women in the beef industry were working as secretaries in the office. I was the first woman in Arizona to handle cattle in the feedlot."
Even though she was singled out because of it, Temple took a stand in the meat industry because she believed in it, because she wanted to make a change. Temple Grandin once said,
"If I did not have my work, I would not have my life."
She was all in. All she needed was for people to listen to her, and eventually they did. Temple began writing articles that spread the word about her ideas. People began asking her to design parts of their plants and even the entire buildings.
I talk about design of chutes. Good equipment is going to make it easier to handle your animals.
Her ideas were new, and they worked. Her restraining machines calmed animals and lowered the likelihood of injuries. Almost half of North America's cattle use Temple's center track conveyor restrainer. Countries all over the world, including the United States, Europe, Canada, and even New Zealand, have used Temple's livestock handling facility design and the system she created to evaluate how well livestock are being handled. On Temple Grandin's official website, one can learn about the designs she's made and how to use them correctly. Specific rules explain how to lay out the handling facilities when they're built. Some examples are that the crowd pen must always be level, and that animals in the pen have to see a specific amount of space ahead of them before it curves. Temple shares in great detail her research, warning against having things as commonplace as a jacket hanging off of the siding of a pen, and she opened the industry's eyes to other seemingly unproblematic issues. But why do these things matter? In this example, the clothes can distract or confuse the cattle when they're supposed to be filing peacefully through the line. Other things she warns against can spook cattle if not heeded to. And when cattle are spooked, injuries happen. No facility wants that. Although workers were uncertain about the rules they had to start following, when they eventually went with them, less animals were injured, and everything went much smoother. Temple Grandin's designs began to improve animal care, along with society's ethical views on animals in factories. It stretched society's minds, challenging them to think about animals in different ways, to think about them the way Temple was able to, because of the way her brain works differently due to her autism.
One of the reasons why a curved race works better is because the animals come around the curve, they think they're going back to where they came from. Notice that we've got solid sides on this chute. That's really important.
Dr. Grandin, you've designed humane livestock handling systems that are used by the largest producers and processors in the world.
Temple Grandin has made a large impact on the history of slaughterhouses and animal byproduct facilities. She's still alive today, continuing her legacy, and she is very busy.
She lectures at kennel clubs, she works with zoos, but most of all, she works with animals whose milk and eggs and bodies are used for food that people eat.
When asked if her works in slaughterhouses makes her sad, Temple said,
"Well, no. Everything dies. Nature can be harsh. Those cattle wouldn't have existed if they had not been bred."
In recent years, Temple Grandin has been focusing on teaching people how to treat animals correctly, as opposed to designing the plants themselves. There's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to improving the lives of animals and the designs of slaughterhouses, but, bit by bit, Temple Grandin has managed to make an incredibly meaningful change in the history of slaughterhouses and mistreatment of animals, along with the help she continues to give to the studies of autism. Temple Grandin still works at her old college, teaching students, researching, and developing systems to help animals further. She works with major fast food companies such as McDonald's and Wendy's. Temple has successfully published and helped others to publish books regarding her works and her knowledge on and experience with autism. She's participated in interviews and appeared on popular talk shows. She's written technical papers and journal articles to better teach the world and express her opinions and research. She's won numerous awards and even had a movie made about her. Autism Today said,
Temple Grandin is arguably the most accomplished and well-known adult with autism in the world.
In the end, Temple Grandin's work wouldn't have happened, wouldn't have helped the countless animals and facilities that it has, if she hadn't taken a stand throughout high school, college, and her early years of work and research. She dealt with prejudice, harassment, and unequal treatment. Her ideas were questioned and she was laughed at because of her birthplace, her gender, and her unique mind. Temple Grandin is a hero of the ages, not only for animals, but for us as well, keeping our morals in check and helping us help animals where they can't help themselves.